They're coming to get you, Barbara. You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara. You used to really be scared here.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming for you, Barbara. They're coming to get you, Barbara. You're still afraid.
Stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara. You used to really be scared here.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming for you, Barbara. They're coming to get you, Barbara. You're still afraid.
Stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You used to really be scared here.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
You used to really be scared.
Johnny,
They're coming to get you, Barbara. You're still afraid.
stop it now, I mean it.
They're coming to get you, Barbara. They're coming for you, Barbara. They're coming to get you, Barbara. Well, you used to really be scared here.
Johnny.
Drive alone on a road that no one knows. I used to run from the things that couldn't change. It's been a while since I let it bring me down. And lately I've been taking myself out. Letting go of who I used to be. Wave goodbye to all the memories. I nod my head and turn my back to the world. And just let this life take me in. I feel a sense of burning in my heart. Part of me that I let you tear apart. These are the lessons that we learn from the old heads. And I never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Cause the best never rest. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. I hold a mic tight grip, staff a raw desert style. Camo suit, Air Force, Levi's flash a smile. 20 years plus vet status versatile. I never put it down cause I raise it like a child. Protect the mic at all costs while I ride the beat. The black asphalt shows the cracks in the street. The sound pound crazy down the Bronx River Parkway. Driving down to Jason's famous bumping barcades. Juju on the beat, yeah we do it like the beat nuts. Never rhyme for free but I do it for some peanuts. Peter Pan, Natural, Rosario, Dawson. Lex here, no fear, do it like a boss son. Showcase the talent, hit the 3 or the slam dunk. Culture on the way, never sell it in a storefront. Preserve it, must protect, that's the model that I live by. Saints in my pocket, walk the arms by my wayside. Play truck, jewels weigh heavy on the neck of the offensive lineman, 55 Folex. Just a sound system, DJ sick on the flex. And I never put it down, cause the best never rests. Okay. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. And I never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. 'Cause the best never rests. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down like there's germs on the ground, plus the germs that we share when the mics pass around. So go home now, you infected clown. I take your time, slide it for show. Read how I rip it down. Your hometown is now our hometown. Sommeliers love us, we got first gross out. $1,500 Margot going down. Plus they told me about that record store that ain't been found out. Life is good when you live it right. I never bit a rhyme that I didn't write. These are the lessons that we learned from the old heads. The JJ Rubacks and the 70s dust heads. They said find your talent and put it to work. I copped 2 turntables and I started to work. Never had to sell packs, never had to move work. I just wrote all night in my little rhyme book. Samurai Solitude, the Shogun. Folex got his, go get your gun. Mine is kinda more like the rock of a 45. Just show me where the plug is and watch me make the party live. Okay. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. And I never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down. And I never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Never put it down. Never put it down, my friend. Life is good when you live it right.
Wherever you want.
You're live. What's up, gang?
Hey guys, happy Friday. We are here tonight for Recovery Chat. We are just going to kick back and talk recovery. We have an amazing guest with us this evening, the Honorable Andrea Duffy. She is through Montgomery County, right? Mm-hmm. And we're just going to kick back and talk about, her foundation, DARA, and what she does to help those that are on the street and looking at jail, recovery versus jail, and just helping. I just love how much you are there and are willing to help those that are on the street. We actually went out, oh my gosh, years ago.
Yeah, many years ago, actually.
Yes, with Angels in Motion. so she could get a look at what they were doing for the community and how she could help. That was amazing and eye-opening. It's, until you're in the front line, you just don't realize how bad it is out there. So,
I remember in the corner, I was like, "Oh my God, I just want to reach out, grab every one of them, and help them." Instead of,
Yeah, that is your
it's
initial
so raw
reaction.
and it's so real, yeah.
I remember somebody 10 feet away from me, a guy who was just staring at me, not with any, ill will in his eyes or in his heart, I'm sure, but he was injecting at that moment, and I felt so nauseous watching this, and all I wanted to do was go up and grab the needle and say, no.
I remember you saying that to me. I
Remember
said,
that?
I don't think that's going to go over too well.
Yeah,
but it is.
and
You-
we're saying,
you're
no.
I just want to grab it.
You
I
feel
mean,
so bad for me, like you just
right?
wanna-
No, don't do that.
Yeah.
Come with me.
Stop
Let's go to a facility.
fix you.
And you don't because that was the age that we started hearing about fentanyl.
Sure, that was just
Yeah,
the beginning
That
of
was
fentanyl.
just starting in 2000, and I think 17 is when
17.
I went. And then I went a couple weeks after. We gave out the blessing bags with the Narcotic Strike Force and got a very different perspective, of course. But they were more out for the dealers than they were the users. But
Right.
it was crazy going into some of these, the flop houses as they call them, and seeing how people lived and these really deplorable conditions.
Everybody sees it on TV and this and that, but man, it's nothing like the real thing when you're down there. It's
No.
like you walked into a third world country. That's the way I always equated
Maybe
it.
even worse than a third
Yeah.
world
And-
country.
I've always equated
Yeah.
that. You can't believe this is going on right in the United States, just not far from your door, and a lot of
Right.
places. But Kensington is one of the more exceptional.
Yeah,
over the
I
top.
wasn't prepared for it, no matter how many pictures I had seen before.
Oh,
And I was a prosecutor, a DA in Bucks County, for many, many years. But this was before the major heroin issue. And so yes, I saw a little bit of drug activity. I prosecuted some cases, but until you're right there on the street, you just don't have
It's
any
so
clue
true.
about how personal it becomes and how frightening and helpless you feel. That was the main thing that I guess the adjective that I took away from that day. I felt helpless.
You do. I just find it so hard to believe that it's going on right at your back door.
Our
It's
back
not
door.
Far from, like,
Yeah, we're very close to.
I mean, and it's worse than like Tijuana. Like when you see like going on in Mexico stuff. I mean, it's like a third world country, and I always feel that they've all been herded there just to keep a better eye on it. But that's just my opinion. I don't know.
Well, I think the problem is once you go there to get your fix, you need money to get out.
Oh, but
Right.
it's a vortex, definitely.
And it's just everything's there and it's convenient.
Sure.
And then so people end up staying for the convenience, and they're not accepted at home. So almost why bother going home?
Well, the convenience is
Right.
kind of part of why we do something different now. We don't do the outreach as much. We help families and parents and all, because I've seen a ridiculous amount of enabling going on down there. I mean, people dropping sleeping bags and tents and
Right.
big trays of food, and there's no reason to leave.
And I know we went in the spring, as far as I can remember.
Yes.
it was-
But I can't even fathom what it's like when these people are freezing
Mm-hmm.
cold
I used
out
to
in
get
the
down there with my
winter.
coffee every Sunday, all year round. It was like
No, you
Sub-Zero.
had an amazing, artillery
setup.
with you. Your setup was quite impressive. And it just, you didn't feel like you were doing enough.
Right.
The blessing bag was wonderful. I've gone to the blessing bag parties to make them, and all that is amazing work because it's needed. They need to know that they're still cared about and they're not
Well,
forgotten.
that's the whole-
So that's wonderful, but we need to do more. It's wonderful to put the information on recovery in there, but the treatment has to start. It just has to start. And when I saw this inordinate amount of cases in my area, and started saying, what can I do? I've got to do something. I'm in the trenches. I'm the first judge that anybody sees. So why don't I do something? Otherwise, they're going to go back on the streets and languish, or they're going into jail and they'll get no help there. Or
Right.
at least very little. So none of those options, neither
Right.
of those sounded great. So I started reaching out to important people and getting connections at the prison and figuring out, well, okay, so it's going to be creative. It's going to be out of the box. It's scary to be starting something new for sure. But after a while it worked, and we have to this date gotten about 800 people into treatment.
That's awesome.
And that's
So,
awesome.
And what's the most wonderful thing, obviously, is the feedback that you get, because
Right.
I'm never going to be in the position to be a doctor or, a medical doctor or a Doris doctor doesn't count, So medical doctor, emergency personnel, all that kind of stuff, I'm never going to save a life that way.
Right.
But if I can try to do it in my way, then I feel like I'm doing what God's work. I really
Right.
feel like this is why I'm here.
Absolutely.
Because
Yeah.
I'm in a really unique golden position to do something. Common Pleas Court judges, they don't get these cases until 7 months down the line.
Right.
So by that point, the results could be fatal.
Right.
And
Sure.
we may even lose them just in the wind. We don't even know how to help them because they're gone.
Right.
So at least when I have them sitting in front of me during an arraignment and I have to set bail, it's just a wonderful option to give them to say, okay, what if I found you a bed in 1 to 3 business days? Because I'll guarantee you I will.
Right.
And most people say, oh, that can't be done. And I never thought it could be done either. When I first started looking into this, in 16, I was, up on the bench getting so frustrated and angry.
Exactly.
Because I'm calling these facilities and they're giving me all these,
The runaround.
yeah,
No-
a
no
lot of
insurance,
red tape,
yeah.
and okay, well, I'm sorry, but, and oh, well, you mean they haven't used in the last 24 hours? I don't know if we'll be able to help them then. I'm like, they've been in prison for 24 hours.
That's one of the best
You
lines
know,
ever. Yeah.
You're telling
You're
me
not-
that's
that's
going to be
definitely true.
an obstacle? Just there was ridiculous things, and you realize that you almost had to lie in order to get someone into treatment, and that's
I know
just
people that go out and get
unacceptable.
high to get into treatment because they got to have something in their system. It's like
Right, to prove that
and
they need
It sounds
help.
so ridiculous, but this is the kind of things that go on like every day.
Right, and at least for a while there, we were able to really work this to a point where it was a win-win, because once you got into treatment, you got into after that it's unsecured bail. All you had to do was do follow-up. Then you'd go up to the Common Pleas Court level and you'd show a judge, hey, this is what I did. I did 30 days. I've been doing all of this outpatient work since. And you're going to get credit for time served more than likely.
Right.
And, the time served in an inpatient facility rather than in a jail. So, it's like win-win-win. And you're going to be healthy. And you're going to have a productive life again. And you can show a judge, up the line there. Look, I've got not only sober and clean, but I'm also working full time, and I'm able to support my children, and I'm able to keep a home, a roof over our heads. That all can happen
And isn't
in
that
several months.
awesome?
And so, when people come to me and say, thanks to the DARA program, I'm able to, have my child stay with me. I have custody, partial custody, or I just joined a union and I have a future now, or, I got married.
Yeah.
And, my wife's family now accepts me.
Right.
Whereas
Yeah,
they
there you go.
rejected me before.
Sure.
Like all these things are just the most wonderful things to hear. And I'm thrilled that we can do this, but it took a while. It was a lot of frustration and a lot of obstacles, such as insurance issues, transportation. A lot of people had nowhere to go to even find out how they could go through this process.
Right.
Where would they have no car, and they wouldn't even get transportation to be admitted. Then we also had bed availability. Everybody and their mother wants to tell you, oh gosh, we're really short on beds. I think the one of the main incredible messages that we need to get out there, and DARA does it all the time in our public forums, is that's nonsense. Yes, beds you can go to a couple different facilities and they can tell you they're full, but there's always a bed.
Sure, there is.
There
And
just
that's
is.
so frustrating for people to try to do it on their own because they just hit roadblock after roadblock after roadblock.
And you can't give addicts excuses.
Right.
I mean, they will survive on those because they're the first ones to come into court and go, all right, I tried here, here, and here. And I'm sure they did. They're not even lying to me because I know how difficult it is. And the other thing is just how to get an assessment.
Sure.
You know, there's no need for an assessment to take any length of time. I've literally been on the bench, handed my phone to a defendant with an assessor, you know, like Hope Stein or Lynn Straskowski, who are amazing, and said, okay, here's your assessment. I mean, it doesn't have to be brain surgery.
It doesn't,
Right.
But
Well,
they make it
you
so
know-
hard that people just give up.
Right. And we've
Right.
got to take away all those obstacles. We got to take away
Absolutely.
all the excuses. And that's the only way we're going to change lives.
And that's what
Yeah.
we do. And you know, we help people cut through the red tape because now we
Mm-hmm.
got the connections. You know, we have the networking that we do.
Right.
That's why we go to all the events on it. It helps them progress through the system because it's just stonewall. They're stonewalling. They just give up. I mean, the parents give up. Everybody like I don't know what else to do.
Right.
You don't know who to call. You don't know all these different places
And you, yeah,
and what to say. You know.
right. You gotta get all your ducks in a row. And a lot of times it's just connections. That's
Sure.
it's it.
Absolutely. It's a shame. You know, but
Especially
That's
for
absolutely true.
yeah, especially for the people that like when this first affected me, I had no idea like where do I go? What do I do? You know, how do I get them help? And it's like, wait a minute, Livengren, that's where all the drunks go. So
Where our friends went. That's how we knew about Levergreen. We all, I had
Yeah.
at least 4 different friends that ended up there one time
Right.
or another. I said, well, we'll go there. It's nearby.
Not
know,
far.
and
That's
that
the only one we knew of.
and that was my uneducated self like, oh, all the drunks go there, let's go. So you know, that's where we headed. And you know, it may not have been the time, but it was the seed that was planted that started that recovery path. And sitting there for 8 hours listening to your loved one begging to be taken to Kensington to get high is
Because it's painful. It's painful
yes.
to be without.
yes.
And we have to understand that. We have to understand that unfortunately relapse is often part of the recovery process. It doesn't mean you're
More
a
times
failure.
than not.
Yes.
You know, families cannot just say, "Oh, we failed because he relapsed." You know, then you can't give up just because of that.
Right.
I'd like to say relapse isn't necessarily a collapse.
Right,
All So
absolutely.
you got to pick up where you left off and just
How
keep
many
on
people
pushing
are
forward.
thriving and sober and clean today who relapsed?
Right.
So thank God we didn't give
most
up on
of
them.
them.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Because now, you know, they wouldn't be with us if we had given up on them.
Exactly.
So when we
Especially
have enough dying on us.
yeah, especially when, you know, oh my gosh, this is his 12th time. Like this is ridiculous.
Well, then 13 is the
Is-
lucky number then.
Exactly.
And that's what you have to keep
Exactly. And people just don't get that and they don't understand it when you're not educated.
Absolutely. And the other part of all of this is just that, you know, families have to be included in everything.
Yeah.
They have to know what's going on.
Sure, it's a family disease.
It is
You know.
absolutely, and we have to embrace our loved ones. But you know, it's the age-old problem: am I enabling, or am I actually being constructive?
There's a thin line between the two, and that's where the
Absolutely.
education comes into play. That's why at our parent meetings or family meetings now, you know, we explain all that. You know, where you know you can
What's the
love
cutoff?
your
Yeah.
person to death if you're not careful through enabling. I mean, so. I mean, definitely you support them and all these. The old adage used to be tough love, but we don't use that in words. It's disconnect with love. We like to use now in the recovery world they're doing. I mean, and people, you know, just have to be educated. They don't know. You're just doing what instinct tells you to do.
Right.
I mean, you run into a burning building for your child if necessary.
Of course you would.
You do anything and everything necessary to save them, but those same values can absolutely be detrimental to their health because now we're too busy fixing up all their problems and paying off their car loan so they don't get bad credit or hiring lawyers to clean up all their messes and all
Right.
instead of them facing the consequences. Whereas
Yeah.
we all have consequences. That's how we all live our lives and stay in a straight and narrow. Without consequences, we have chaos.
Right.
You know,
exactly.
and
And that's
that's
why
what-
we have rules and laws, because if we didn't, we would be Mad Max all over the place, you know?
Absolutely.
It's crazy.
But we're too worried to fix everything for them because we don't put too much pressure on them. They might relapse.
Right.
You know, oh, we
So-
don't want to, you know, we don't want to ask them to do that or
Right.
that's like.
So we'll
That'll
walk
push them over the edge.
Yeah,
If
so-
I,
Right,
I
that's what they're
demand
so
that they
afraid
get a
of.
job, or I demand that
Exactly.
they help around the house, or you know, whatever it may be. And you know, but I think what we all have to understand. I have 4 children, and they're, but the grace of God, I don't have this. Maybe yet is the better word.
right, and you never
because
know.
the best of families are,
You know,
are
that's-
facing this, and you know, I live in Montgomery Township, and of course I have to actually be the judge in Montgomery Township and Hatfield Township, so I'm not giving away any major secrets here.
Right.
But when I first started DARA in 2016, people came to me in the community and said, I just don't understand why you're doing this here. They didn't understand that it was happening there, you know, here. They thought that was a city problem.
Right.
I think we've come a long way as far as public understanding of how, you know, it can deal with every cross section of the population.
It's
But in the
gotten so
beginning,
large-
that
in
was-
the beginning, but
was
it's so
huge.
large now. There's no more ignoring it. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody. I mean, they say you take any family tree and shake it hard enough, you'd be surprised if it comes out of it now. I mean, I forget the latest statistics on addiction. I mean, how many out of 10 families? I think it's like 7 out of 10 families have addiction.
Something.
Right?
Yeah, I
Might
mean,
be higher than that now.
but the worst
Well, it'd be
problem is
alcohol or drugs or
right,
whatever.
and between fentanyl and COVID, it has been a deadly double whammy.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, too much solitude with the COVID. People just sitting home in their own heads and then
yeah,
relapsing and
and not having that
starting.
group support that they were used to, and you're just feeling isolated and depressed, and you know that the lack of funding for what just basic needs happened
Right.
during COVID.
Right.
But more than anything, it was just feeling detached from the normalcy of recovery, whatever that means to people. You know,
Well,
so
there's a lot
it's
of
been
camaraderie in
horrible.
recovery, and like that camaraderie was lacking during COVID. I mean, you need that group support, that peer support. Peer support
Absolutely.
can be positive as much as it can be negative too. You know.
At times,
And,
you know, sometimes you want to send people to inpatient in a totally other area, you know, because
Right.
they
Different
they
faces,
have to
different
get
places.
away from those reminders and their old ways. So you know, sometimes sending them to, you know, out of state or up to the Poconos or
Right.
you know, and just in a different area where they won't be exposed to those memories and those, you know, fallbacks. That's really very, very important. But I think we just all have to embrace the fact that this could be our children.
Yes.
This is not because that family across the street, well, you know, they've never been
They've
never been right. You know, they don't. They've never raised their
We knew
children
this was
correctly.
going to happen with them kids.
Yeah.
We've seen it all the.
I knew this. I knew it. This is no surprise.
And it's funny because a lot of times it's the neighbors that know before the family knows. You know, the parents are usually the last to know because we're in denial. We don't want to think, you
Not
know,
our
it's
child. No,
it's
it
the
can't
flu. It's, you know, he's not feeling good. You know, he worked hard or, you know, she's got her period. Like these are like things that we as family members like kind of shut out because until, you know, it gets really in.
Yeah, until it comes to a point where you go, oh my gosh, I really ought to do something
I
now.
have got
But we
to
all
accept
want to
it.
make excuses. We want to we want to believe those excuses. Oh, their pupils are dilated. Oh, he said he'd been reading a lot.
Yeah.
You know, I think
Oh, I know. Yep.
you know we've heard them all, and we just have to find a time when we say, okay, he was not reading.
Right.
I know my child, he was not reading a lot, or whatever, you know, the excuse is. But you're right, we don't want to believe it.
Right.
Because
We don't.
It couldn't happen to me.
No,
it couldn't
it-
happen to our family.
and,
You know, we
it
love
will-
our children. We,
And-
you know, we've supported them their whole lives. We've always been there for them. So why would they do this to us? They couldn't.
Yes.
Right.
And
Oh my gosh, we were the scout parents. We were the band parents. She was on every band trip. We were involved with the scouting and everything.
And the funniest thing is any meeting you go into, any support meeting you go into, the first thing out of a person's mouth is, I never thought it would happen in our home.
Right.
Never thought it would happen. We talked to our kids. We told them. And I honestly feel, and I say this all the time, I honestly feel addiction is more of, it won't happen to me. I'm smarter than that. That is like,
I would never let that happen to me.
Not on my watch.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
or my children. We have a great relationship. We're open. We converse all the time. They couldn't be hiding this from me.
right.
But that's
We were
sometimes the worst
blindsided.
scenario. It's sometimes the worst scenario when you rely on that, and maybe you do have wonderful communication up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't just say, oh well, every time he had a problem before he came to me, so this can't be an addiction
Mm-hmm.
now.
And from me, and this is my thought process, whether it is my loved ones or not, his I grew up in addiction. With my father and my uncle, and I was surrounded by it, and so many people that I knew growing up were addicted, and are not here with us anymore. Not because of the drug itself. Back then, it was what it is mixed with, but I had a whole different outlook on an addiction. You don't want to be like your grandfather and die with, $2.45 in your pocket. And, just all of these things, oh, that guy's a scumbag. And, I'm uneducated. I don't look at it as a disease. I look at it as a choice. And up and until my loved one was affected, and I got the education that I got, that's when, okay, I see where I was wrong. Do you think my loved one's going to come to me and say, Mom, I got a problem?
Once in a while that does happen, but it's I believe the rare. That's the exception, not the rule. The rare event. But you can have the best family, you can have the best education, you could be living in the best house. I often talk about, the woman who came in with the highest priced attorney in a fur coat in her 70s. And she was actually charged with PWID, which is possession with intent to deliver, because she was caught with so much heroin. And she came in and the attorney said, we understand her Fifth Amendment right. I want her to tell you the scoop. And so she did. She said, listen, Judge, I'm 75 years old. I doctor shopped for as long as I could to handle the pain. And finally, I was cut off by the mall. So despite the fact that I detest going to that awful place called Kensington, I will go there. But I buy in bulk because I'm wealthy enough to do so. And I will go there and I will buy as much as I can to last as long as it can.
Yeah.
So I, in no way am I a dealer. I am just a user who has been cut off by the medical community, and
Yeah.
I need to have this. It defies logic that she could actually ration it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I believe she had enough control that she actually was doing that.
It's definitely
but she's like-
plausible. I mean, 'cause
Yeah.
so many people were left in a lurch like that. I mean, with so many people doctor shopped, and they never considered what they were doing as illegal or immoral. Like your 1 month's prescription now lasted 2 weeks, now it's lasted 1 week. So they get another doctor. Then the whole top blew off with the whole opiate thing. Now it's all the doctors' feet were held to the fires, and
Right.
all the
and now we
pharmacists
have
started
some,
networking.
we have those
So now they
those
can
procedures
figure
in
out.
place.
So,
But
I mean, people have been addicted to OxyContin for 20 years. You can't just say you can't have no more.
Exactly.
right,
Without
there's no
ramifications.
cold turkey kind of situation. But I mean, she said, I have it under control, Judge. I can buy for 6 months and I can truly ration it out just to get past the pain. And I'm successful. you're hearing these words out of the person who could be your mother.
Exactly.
Right, oh my
saying
God,
she's
it's amazing.
successfully rationing her opioid addiction. But it's just a story, because we talk about this happening to teenagers and we talk about it happening to senior citizens.
Exactly.
And you hear weird stories like this, but
Yeah.
they're believable stories because it in their world that makes sense. Of course, she's 75 years old. Do you think she wants to hang out in Kensington or go there frequently? Of course not.
No,
Right.
no,
So
nobody wants to go there.
I absolutely bought that story, and I will always believe that story. And we got her into treatment, and I believe to this day, I love getting these emails from people, that say, "Hey, just want to check in with you. I'm still alive. I'm thriving."
And that's
You know,
amazing. And that's because
There's nothing better than that.
Yeah.
I mean, so I haven't checked on her lately, so maybe I'll make a mental note to
I
do
used
that.
to love the stories. I always asked the story when I was down there doing
Mm-hmm.
outreach. And like one of the wackiest ones, and not wacky, one of the saddest ones, I see this young guy, he didn't fit in. He was still kind of clean cut looking, and I started talking to him, he's very articulate. I was like, man, so I said, I got to ask you, what's your story? What are you doing here? And you stick out like a sore thumb. He said, Pappy, I'm so embarrassed. This kid was like 17 years old. He was watching National Geographic Channel, Drugs Incorporated or whatever it was, and they said the best heroin in the world was in the Kensington section of Philadelphia. He said, Pappy, I was on a bus within 3 days. I've been stuck here for 2 months. I can't get out of here.
And how
And
can
he was
you?
from like Oregon, like from
Right, unless you
Washington State,
prostitute
Oregon.
yourself or you start stealing or
Yes.
well, how are you going to get out?
Exactly. So
You
they
know.
they panhandle as much as they can, and they all start shoplifting. I mean, it's such an overwhelming thing. People don't understand when you get to that part of your addiction, the party's over. I mean, you're not partying to get high; you're partying to get well. I wouldn't even call it partying at that point. I call
Right.
it using.
It's just
You're
surviving.
using to get well.
right,
That is the way to survive. It's not that you're going around so happy because you're an addict.
right.
And no one wakes up in the morning and says, I think I'm going to be an addict today.
Yeah, but
Or
nobody
I'm
does.
going to grow up and I want to be an addict.
Nobody
You
does.
know?
Or
And-
it's not going to
And
take over. on
Right.
me.
Right,
I
I'm
can
going to
handle
be
this.
able to control this,
Right.
right? Because I'm better than that.
Right,
You know,
and-
I'm not going to let this get to me.
exactly,
And that's
and
the-
even still, when they, I don't care if you pick up because you want to pick up to experiment, you want to try it, you're gotten it from the doctor,
Right. You
or
need to take the edge off in the beginning. It's
Right.
the edge, and then it becomes much
and
more.
and it is a choice because it was your choice to take it from the doctor without reading that 500-page pamphlet. My doctor knows best. He knows what's
Right.
going to fix me. So it was my choice not to read that pamphlet, to take it, but it was the drug's choice to turn me addicted if I have the addictive brain.
Right. And we all, many of us, I'm not going to say all, but most of us, in my humble opinion, are addicted to something.
Something.
It
Yep.
can be something as simple as your favorite TV show, or sports. You just can't miss
Chocolate.
it or you'll go out of your mind. I
Chocolate.
cannot miss that game. Chocolate, shopping, sex. Everybody has an addiction.
yep.
I can't get over pretzel balls. Those wonderful pretzel balls. Oh my gosh! Every day I think I have a bag a day. I'm not lying.
There's a program for that.
There might be, but I mean honestly, everybody has some kind of addiction.
But
Exactly.
And luckily, most of us, it's a harmless addiction.
right.
But even with shopping and sex, you can get yourself
Into
in
a lot of
whole
trouble.
load of trouble.
Yep.
Um,
Gambling.
it's,
Oh
you
my
know,
gosh.
But unfortunately now the drugs are almost always laced with fentanyl,
Mm-hmm.
so it is a very significant crapshoot.
And the worst part of it all, and this is just really coming up in our area, is the trank that they're putting in it, causing the flesh-eating skin illness. And you can't even go to a rehab because you have open wounds.
Right, and there's other rehabs that won't take you for other reasons too.
Right.
But I'm very much in awe of my Dara people because other than those very extreme cases that maybe it's you're pregnant or bulimic or whatever, we have to know that ahead of time so we can find the proper
Exactly.
facility for you. So you have to be open and honest with us about some medical issues.
Right.
But other than that, 1 to 3 business days. There's just no excuse when you know.
Especially if somebody's in withdrawal and they're sitting there, and it's hard to get somebody to wait around for 3 days. They're going to give up.
Right, and we've got to all understand that this is part of a process. It's not magic. You have to work hard. to get through it. And I'm glad I don't have that. Glad I don't have to climb that mountain. But we all have to help others do it.
And one of the biggest problems is everybody goes AMA too quick because they're not, and that this shows up bad for you. I mean, nobody wants to take that gamble on you now. They want to give that bed to somebody else because you went AMA the last 3 times. You can see there, and I mean it's all part of it. I mean, people are going to, if they're not getting the treatment they need, they're going to go AMA. I mean that's against medical advice.
Yeah, and
And,
you abscond from probation, so then
Yeah.
the next time you're picked up, and you can understand that the patient officer's job and reputation is on the line. They cannot keep letting you go to a treatment center.
Even the
and
VA, if you don't follow the VA to a T, their protocol, they kick you off the thing. And then you got to start all over, and I hope that you can get in.
On your own.
I mean,
Right.
I've talked to so many veterans down on the corner on the Ave. I mean, a lot of them, and like you said, they're all walks of life. I mean, I talked to Ivy League kids down there. I talked to contractors down there. They get hooked on the Percocets so they can keep working. They go on work sets, you know what I mean?
And they do think that if they can work, even though they're not at their best, but they can get through a work day, then they've got
they're
this
not
under
addicted.
control.
They're not addicted.
Right,
They're,
it's heroin, but like I always say, I don't think anybody dabbles in heroin.
You know what?
There's
no
It's
dabbling.
funny you say that. I talked to a professor one time. He says, Pap, the first time someone tries heroin, they stand a 50% chance of developing a dependency on that drug. The first time.
The first time.
Many people. I mean, some people
And some people
Some people
die
can
on
walk
the first
away,
time.
sure.
Let's
Yeah.
be
Some people
honest.
can try and walk away. He said, but if you try that a second time, that climbs to a 75% chance of developing
done.
an addiction to that drug. No other drug is
Not
like
that
that.
you're done. You're not going to have help, but you're in it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no other
And-
drug
and
that
no
sucks you
one-
in so
right.
fast like that. Alcohol might take 20 years to kill you, you know?
Right.
But now everything's adulterated with fentanyl, even the synthetic cannabis. They find it adulterated
Absolutely.
with it. Just to
Yep.
get you hooked on their
You could be the
product.
strongest human being emotionally as well as physically, and you are still going to be hooked. And a lot of people don't want to admit that they're weak that way.
I know.
You're not really weak. You're just human.
Right.
And some people
You
are just
know?
wired for it too. I mean, some people could go get surgery and be given, a very strong opiate, and they take it a couple of days and they're fine. Some people, I mean, within a week, it's like
You're right. It's
they're
just
off
your
to the
chemistry.
races, and they didn't even know it. It just depends how you're hardwired. I mean, it affects everybody differently. I know my wife can't take opiates. I mean, she has a debilitating autoimmune thing that goes on her, and that's what they prescribe her, and they make her very ill. She can't function. She can't even cook a meal. I mean, it's horrible. She says, I can't live like this. And she just pushes through.
And
without
I'll
it.
tell you, I was on it for 3 months. They had me on an oxycodone and a morphine twice a day, and I was a bowl of Jello. I mean, and the pain is still there, but your mind is mush, and you don't really care. And
As long
I
as
just
you don't have the pain, you'll keep taking it.
right, and I
Because
was
that
like,
has to go. That's
Exactly.
the only thing you can do to survive is get rid of the
People
pain.
don't understand. It don't cure the pain. It just
numbs it.
keeps
It
your
numbs
brain
your brain.
from recognizing pain.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
The receptors.
the underlying
are not-
issue is still
Yeah.
there.
And when I just was like, I can't live like this. I have to live a life. I was living on Facebook because that's all I could do, sit in a chair. And so I joined an all natural site because they were saying giving a lot of information on fibromyalgia. So I started reading and I started doing some of the things that they were suggesting. Some of it helped, some of it didn't. But I was like, that's not for me. So I just stopped the medication. I just stopped
So
at
you
3
were cold
months.
turkey.
And I went through withdrawal. My girlfriend is a pharmacist, and she was like, "Hey, how you doing? How's the fibromyalgia?" I'm like, "It sucks. I'm in so much pain." I said, "I feel like I got the flu. I'm like sick, and I just feel so tired and pain." And she was like, "Did they change your medicine?" And I said, "No, I just stopped taking it." She goes, "Laura, you can't. You've been on this for 3 months. You can't just
and people
stop."
think they're being brave that way, but
Yeah.
But as far as heroin is concerned,
Right.
Yeah, be brave.
Be brave.
Yeah,
Be brave.
That's a whole different
Yeah.
story. But when you hear that, and this first happened when we were down there in 2017, that was, like I said, it was the time that fentanyl was becoming very popular. And I know that day that they said, we've heard that there's a bad batch out there today. I mean, evidently that's like the Pony Express, like the word gets around.
Yeah.
Go to this corner, that's a bad batch. And people wanted the bad batch.
That's the one they want. That's the good stuff.
When we
And I'm
went
freaking out because I'm going, bad batch, oh my gosh.
Right.
Where do we find that?
don't share the stamp.
Right.
But when we went,
we want to know what is that marked? Is that Mickey Mouse? Is that
Yeah.
Right.
Daisy
That's the
Duke?
way
What is it?
the addictive mind works. And
Yeah.
people can't rationalize
When
that.
we-
Like, what do you mean? They know if it's deadly, it's dangerous. Why would they go to that? Because that's the good stuff, and I can
But
handle
it's
it. I know how to handle
Russian
that.
roulette. I mean,
Yes.
that's all that is.
When-
You just don't know.
when we were going through the family class, day of reflection, and Dana, who was running it, she said, a lot of times somebody will overdose and die. And, what do you think your loved one's doing? They're not running away from that. They're running towards it. They want to know what the stamp looks like, where they got it, because they're smarter than. And I'm like, what? Nah, what?
Why? Yeah. My body, I'm a superhero. I can handle it. But I just remember that day going, oh my gosh, they're going for the bad stuff. They're not running from it. They're going to it.
Exactly.
It was just what a learning experience. And I think, when you're anyone who's in the system, whether you're, in parent support, whether you are in facilities and doing the 12 steps with people as a guide, or if you're clergy, or you're, in civic groups, like we said, you got to go to see this firsthand. You got to understand the terminology, and you've got to realize what the reality is for these people. Sitting on a bench, I wasn't going to learn that. I mean, I realized how dumb I truly was in 2015 before,
I wouldn't say dumb. It's just
Uneducated.
I'm going to say dumb because I didn't know all of
Right.
these things. It's great to be an
most
attorney.
people
It's
don't.
great to have been even a district attorney. But, it's all timing. It's all what you were exposed to during a certain period. And, despite all that experience in prosecuting drug cases in the 90s, in the 2010s, I still didn't know enough to know what I didn't know.
Most
Right.
people don't.
You know
Most
what I
people
mean? That's
think
the
they
other thing.
understand addiction. They don't really understand. I was one of them people. I like Lori. I grew up surrounded by addiction. I had a cousin who died. I would go to that cousin like, you got to get your stuff together here. You're driving your grandma an early grave because she's the only one who wouldn't give up on him.
And you're the 20th person who said that to him at the family
Right.
picnic, right?
Right.
And like
You know,
I was
so
one of
they're
them people, so I
that's
can't
a-
get angry at people for thinking like that now. I would make me a hypocrite. It wasn't until I educated myself. We had to. I mean, it came into our family, and we had to figure it. I couldn't figure out why this happened, and I'm one of the people I got to understand. So I started digging, and it started making more sense to me, and I was able to recognize it as a disease. So 8 years ago, I'd have said you're crazy. It's not a disease. It's a bad choice.
Right.
So
And that's
your everyday
why
person
your
isn't going to educate
continuing
themselves.
education is so
Right.
important.
But people don't
You know,
see a need for it unless it's dumped into their lap. You know
Yeah.
what I mean?
And
Because
I
it's
wanna
changing.
Right. I
It-
want to stay current with what's
Yes.
going on out there, what's the terminology, what's the trend.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it's so important that I really do try to get to all the courses that I can.
Exactly.
You know,
ever evolving.
learning all the lingo, learning that, I have to put myself in their place, and I have to talk the talk and walk the walk. You know, I mean, you got to do both.
and look at their
because-
family
Right.
past.
I didn't get into this because I did have addiction in my family. I did not. I had a grandfather who was an alcoholic, and I heard a nasty one, but I wasn't exposed to him.
Right.
And the family rejected him, so nobody saw him for many, many years. So that really didn't touch me. What touched me were parents in my courtroom sobbing, saying, "Why can't you help?
Right.
Why can
can't
you do
Yeah.
something to help him rather than just put him in jail?" I'm sorry, you don't have to listen to many of those beggings, so to speak, to say, okay, I gotta do something. I gotta.
Yeah.
I can't stand this. I feel so frustrated and I feel stupid and I'm picking up this phone and all I want to do is curse at the person on the other end of the line. What do you mean I have to say this, or he has to say that, or he has to admit this? Like just that 24 hours he has to have used within the last 24
Yeah.
hours.
That or he's,
Oh my
he's,
God.
he's
You're not
possible
a
self-harm. He's suicidal. You got to lie and say that, and in order to try and get in. There's just so much.
So I
Ridiculous
was
stuff.
hanging up the phone going, this is bull, and I'm not putting up with this. Well, you had to put up with it.
Yeah.
You had to play the game. And so I said, okay, well then maybe it's time to create a new game.
Yeah, we do.
Because I don't want to play this one. This is not for me. I'm not going to lie.
Exactly.
That's how we got into what we're doing, because we've seen the families being left behind. There's plenty of help out there for people that are addicted. We just got to get them to take the help. And
Right.
That's the hardest part. But the families are left behind, like not knowing what to do, where to turn, and we've seen a big void there. So that's why we kind of shifted gears, man.
And I know that we are. I meant to tell this to you before we started too. I mean, we're interested in our area to have a DARA parent support group. To really, not necessarily through DARA, but to just facilitate it and get something going at maybe our local Y, because there are lots of parents who have lots of questions and need lots of encouragement and support
Parents and
understanding.
grandparents.
Oh yeah,
The
Some of the
grandparents.
grandparents are stuck with these children. And when they go into treatment and this and that, and they don't know their rights as a grandparent.
Oh yeah, that's
And
true.
there's so
too.
many hurdles for them to have to go through.
And I know Lenape has a grandparent support group. They have a whole thing for that, and I have it on my page as well on Facebook. But
You need to know you're not alone.
you need to know you're not alone.
Everybody else is feeling this
and
who
he-
has someone in
Right.
their family.
And here's
struggling.
the struggle. You have your Naranon, you have your Al-Anon, which I use a lot of Naranon to help other parents. I don't care for Naranon. I don't care for the actual meetings. I love their tools.
But you have to do what works for you,
Right.
Because everybody's
Exactly.
different.
There's so
and you
many.
gotta try different
Exactly.
options until you find that fit.
And that's when it started with us. I was not fitting in anywhere. The Al-Anon, the Naranon. I took a lot of the Naranon, but the meetings just weren't for me. I have to talk. I have to say, I'm pissed off. This is why I'm pissed off. Now tell me what I need to do. And you can't do that through Naranon. And the next meeting that was available was the Livingren Parent Group. And I went into there and I hated it. I thought it was horrible. I thought the people were horrible. And I kept going back for some reason. And I'm there 7 years now. And I go back every year, Wednesday nights. Now it used to be Tuesdays. And I've only missed a handful of meetings in 7 years because they helped me. And now I want to be able to help the next parent, the next spouse, the next
That's
friend.
wonderful. Because
And-
you can help more than anybody.
Yeah.
You've been down that road, and
Right.
that's we're looking to try to start a support group too.
Right.
In our area, because we seem to be lacking with that. But when parents seem to say the same things over and over again, no matter if they're wealthy, no matter if they're religious, no matter if they're an intact family, it doesn't matter. They all say the same things. I don't know what to do.
Right.
I've been told I'm an enabler, then I've been told I'm the opposite. I don't know where I failed. Well, they always want to take responsibility
Sure.
somehow.
That's
And
natural.
yeah, and I am screwing up every day, and the only salvation I ever have is when my son or daughter's picked up and they're spending the night in jail, or
It's the only time you get to sleep.
right, because otherwise all I do is wait by
worry.
the phone
Sure.
for that to ring, and Judge, you got to stop it. I can't live like this.
Right.
I'm going to die. This very slow and painful death because I don't sleep.
Sure.
And
And many people get very sick. They get very sick. They go through all their savings, trying to do whatever they can, like to fix this. and you beat yourself up in the beginning. That's why I always tell them the 3 C's. You know, you didn't cause this, you can't control it, and you can't cure it. That's
Right.
the 3 C's of addiction right there.
Wonderful way to put it.
And,
Cause,
we
control,
always
and
and
cure.
you
Cause, control, and cure. I
Yeah.
think I might use that. You mind if
Sure,
I steal
that's
that
the-
from
that's
you?
the 3
you can
C's.
steal it. It's not ours.
It's not ours. But you even throw the 4th C
It's
in. You
not
shouldn't
on.
condone it in your own home. You don't have to. I mean, you give your loved one a choice. You can live here, drug free, and forever. But if you continue to use and choose you choose not to live here. I'm not throwing you out. You're just not choosing to go by the rules. You know, and that's the way it's got to be presented
And
to
a
them.
lot of them lose, custody of their children.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, instead of that invigorating them to say, "Oh, I can't live without my kids," that they become desperate and
Right.
they say, "Well, now there's no hope. If I don't have my children, then I
Right.
have no reason to push forward."
Right.
They don't think of the opposite side, which is, okay, get the help you need. You'll have your children back.
Right.
But they don't. They
right.
just they concentrate on the hopelessness instead of the opportunity to get them back.
Right.
And I see that happening all the time, and unbeknownst to many of the defendant children, constantly, and we're talking obviously adult children. I get emails all of the time. I've heard about you, so I want you to do this for my child too.
We have people in our group with 43-year-old children going through it. I mean,
Right.
we have parents of all ages that come in. We're not just a parent group now. We're a family group. We rebranded this year.
Oh, that's
So
wonderful,
now we
yeah.
got spouses and blah, 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 everything. But
And poor spouses, they're overlooked so often.
sure, they're there left to make a decision. I can't throw them out. How am I going to pay the mortgage?
And-
Right,
and that-
he's still working.
Yeah,
Like,
he's
they're
still
the
working
working
here and there
addicts,
for
right?
now. Yeah.
And that's the saddest part for our spouses or our significant others, our partners, because they're depending upon the helping with the mortgage, the rent, the utilities, the car payments, the child care,
And that's scary too.
Yes.
Because then they feel really very, very concerned. I have to go to work. Am I safe leaving my attic significant other with my children?
Right.
exactly.
I mean, what pressure, what stress you have there. God forbid something happens, and we know it can. Should I have not gone to work? But if I don't go to work, how
Right.
am I going to feed those children?
That's
Right.
what everybody
You
thinks,
know,
and that's
oh
why
my
the cycle
gosh.
just continues
Right.
itself over and over. And we
And
always say nothing changes if
nothing
changes.
changes.
I mean, it'll just create this cycle. Will go on forever. I mean, like that. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different outcome. Well, that's what drug
what-
abuse
that's
is. It's
definitely what we do.
insanity because we just keep doing the same thing and nothing changes. I mean, it's just a vicious cycle. So sometimes you got to be the one that make the change. To change
And you've got
to break the whole link.
You've got to be brave.
It is, and it's
And
it's easy to tell
sometimes-
someone,
yeah,
but it's a hard
But
decision.
they know that sometimes they might be sending them out to the street for their last dose. And
Exactly.
I don't know.
Right.
The last one might be their last one.
We don't
that-
pretend. We say that right out loud. I say, you know the worst case scenario, and that's always present. We always bring that up.
I always-
mean, we don't paint a pretty picture.
No.
We talk the truth to them there, and people want to hear the truth. They really do. Mm-hmm. They're just
They
afraid to
should.
say it.
And I always tell them, I always say, listen, you have to, and without a doubt, you have to prepare for the worst. You have to. But you always have to have that hope. You have to hold on to that hope because there are so many in recovery. So
Oh my
many.
gosh, the success stories are often ignored.
Yeah, because
And we
the
can't,
anonymous.
and that's why and hopefully at the Dara Forum, the next one that we'll have in March, we're going to have at least one person who has graduated from Dara, and they can say there's light at that end of the tunnel if you choose to keep going. But there were times that I know a lot of the people say I didn't want to keep going. I wasn't happy, but I was content in some strange way.
Right.
Just having my need fulfilled and
Right.
and saying, well, the fentanyl, if there was fentanyl in it, it didn't kill me. So maybe I'm meant to live, and I'm just going to keep doing what I need to do to survive.
Exactly. And I just want to shout out to everybody. Thanks for being
I'm trying
here.
to look at the
Yes.
comments.
Uh,
And
Well, here's comments right here in front of you.
okay.
Heather Ritter is
Hello,
here,
Heather.
and she said, "I love her." So, these are just the people that are here with us tonight. There's a lot of people in the background that we do not see, but I just want to mention that we are here with the Honorable Judge Andrea Duffy, and if you are out there, please share, subscribe, and like. You never know who needs to hear this tonight. And if you're sharing it, we can help somebody. If I see there's comments, there's a lot of comments.
Any questions? If I can help.
Remember the call-in line, folks. We have a call-in line, 267-737-8031. You want to call in and ask the Honorable Andrea Duffy
Yes.
any questions? She would be more than glad to answer them for you.
Yes.
I can. I
She's
will.
a great person. We've known her quite a few years now. We always enjoy being in her
Yes.
company.
And yeah, we just
Keep saying it. Keep
I
saying
am.
it. Tell me more. Don't interrupt the man. What else am I?
We do.
Hang on.
She's a
She's
great all-around
awesome.
person.
She
really
is. She's
and
awesome.
She has a great sense of humor, too.
yes. And just to go, you're looking for a family support through the DARA program. I can honestly say, look into Balm. That is Be a Loving Mirror by Beverly Buncher.
Okay. And you know who might be doing this is Margie. Our Margie.
Awesome.
She might be reaching out to you, so we're hoping that
Awesome.
can take place.
I
She knows
just
she can reach out to us anytime. I always
Yes.
keep in touch with her on Facebook.
The very best.
Yeah.
Love
Yes.
Margie. Spent a lot of time on the avenue with Marge.
Yes, our
Now
Margie.
she's a jet setter. I don't get to
I
say it. She's all
know.
over the
She's
place.
always traveling. But Margie, and we don't even need to go into last names or anything like that, but I met Margie in court, and she is fine with me telling the story
excellent.
because she's become one of my best friends. Mm-hmm. And I met her because her daughter was in front of me. And her daughter was very nasty that first time she was in front of me. I saw many different sides of Stephanie. And then I saw Margie's son. And I did the same, tried to help him as well. Unfortunately, Steph did not make it. And Margie is living with that. And,
Yeah, I remember when that happened. That was very, very sad.
it was a
I
horrible
mean,
thing.
especially as involved in all she wasn't and all. And she tried everything she could do, but
And she's a nurse. Her husband was a doctor. She's told this story publicly. She's spoken at DARA forums. This was a case of, a very well-educated, loving family. Mm-hmm. And one sibling made it and one didn't. And I have shared many, many tears over that passing. And I probably will never get over it myself.
Right.
Because, you try not to believe that you failed. But I take these, I'm only human, and I take things somewhat personally at times, even though I try my damnedest not to, because I've got to be professional and always be looking at the next person that I can help. But we're human beings. And I'm really thrilled that her son is thriving with a child and working and, in a nice relationship. And I love seeing the Facebook posts and this baby who's so absolutely adorable. But then I know that Stephanie's little girl is out there and doesn't have a mom.
Right.
she got a great grandmama. Spent a lot of time with her.
She
there.
is the best. But we have to once in a while take those disappointments and
Sure, it's very, but like you said, you
cry,
can't take it
but
to
you
heart.
got to move on.
You got to move
And
on
it's
for the next
upsetting.
one.
Yes.
Absolutely, because, man, we get it all the time. We have parents that lost 2 children. I mean, not in a row.
Yeah.
And they're so nice, and they still try to help as best they can. And you don't imagine what's going through their head. I mean, we know one woman, a friend of ours, Christine. I mean, that she don't mind me talking, but she's a super nice lady, and she's lost a son and a daughter. The twins, weren't they?
Yeah. The twins did not pass. Her brother is the twin. He is still living.
Remember, but
The older brother died first, and
and
then
just
she lost
her daughter like 2 years ago, maybe, or maybe not even.
about a year and a half ago.
So it's, and then she's like still chimes in. She still goes to an R&I meeting. She comments here sometimes on the show. Man, I don't know how she goes through it. You know what I mean? And she tried everything, and it's just something they have to do for themselves. You can only be there for them to give them support and love, but you can't make them well. Only they can.
No. You always have to tell them how much you love them. That's but it can't just be the parent who's doing this. We've got to get rid of stigma
Yes,
so
stigma.
that people will be able to ask for help, and we also have to, as a community, embrace these people. They're not lepers. You know, talking about the lepers of the Bible.
Yeah.
These are not lepers.
Right.
It's not going to rub off on you. It's not contagious.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean that you know they're dirty and they're going to give you disease by hugging them. You know, I mean, it almost reminds me of AIDS back,
Yes.
in the 80s and 70s. You know, this is you need to reach out and make them know that you live in a community that wants to help, doesn't want to judge.
Right.
And until everybody in that community is going to say, I'm not walking to the other side of the street to avoid you, I'm going to say, hey, what can I do?
Yeah.
I think I'm getting a better understanding of what you're going through. And that's
Right.
why we want to reach out to a lot of our faith leaders as well, because there are a lot of clergy who are not going to know when someone comes to them, whether it's in the confessional, you can tell I'm Catholic, or whether
Guilty too.
right.
Guilty.
I live with my Catholic guilt all the time. It's true. But if you go to the temple, if you go to the mosque, are your faith leaders locally going to be able to say, okay, this is what we're going to do. This is where I'm going to send you. Here's resource number 1, 2, 3. We're going to be there for you and standing behind you constantly. The whole parish, the whole temple, the whole mosque is going to
Yeah.
comfort you and embrace you and support you. But it also can be, the lay world too. It can be, any kind of community group, the Boy Scouts, whatever it may be. Every leader, civic or faith, needs to understand what resources are there
Exactly.
and where to direct people.
And
It
get
can't
the
be,
education.
and I believe in prayer too, but prayer is not going to lick it.
Right.
So it's great to say we're going to pray together. We're going to, put you in our prayer chain or whatever.
Our drum circle.
Yes, but
That's the latest.
yes, but we've got to do more than just that.
Like,
Prayer's great.
You say with the stigma, that's why the parent meetings are so good to be in, because you're in a room full of people
Who get it?
who get it. They know you're bad, because you can't go talk to your sister about it, or your best friend, or your neighbor. If they don't understand addiction, you're wasting your time talking to them, because they already have their own preconceived notion of what addiction is, and it's mostly wrong.
And we know it because we were them.
And you don't have to be embarrassed in a parent meeting, because every parent has experienced the lying, the stealing, the cheating. I mean, so you're not going to shock anybody in that room. They all experience it, because
Right.
it's like our loved ones all read from the same playbook. It's amazing
Right.
how they all do the same things.
Right.
So that's why parent meetings or family meetings are so beneficial, because you could be yourself, you could tell the truth. You're not going to shock no one in that room.
Right.
And I
We-
think that's helpful in court too, because
Yeah.
sometimes we'll have an open conversation, and the police officer will even volunteer. I'll leave the room. If that'll make him feel more
Right.
comfortable or the family more comfortable.
We have a message here. I am loving listening to the Honorable Judge speaking about addiction with compassion. I won't share names, but her son is presently incarcerated and will be getting out shortly. We have found a bed for him. And, the prison or jail, wherever he's stationed, has found a bed for him.
Super. That's so important to not go out to the same existence that you had.
Exactly. And, and I hope she doesn't mind me sharing, but, it's so weird that this disease, when your loved one's picked up and put in jail, it's just like,
Yes, thank you, God.
I can sleep. And it's really sad because this is the only disease where a parent will call the parole officer and say, listen, you got it, because they're so sick and they're literally dying. And the parent picks up the phone. This is where he's at. Go pick him up.
Right.
And if you were to say this to anybody else that is not involved with addiction at all, they would be like, you did what?
You ratted
your
out
own
your
child?
own child.
You
Yeah.
put your...
And that's why they send me those very emails. Stuck in the file. I get up on the bench to hear the case, and here's this email. And they're saying, please, please, and a lot of times that same parent who wrote the email is in the courtroom, but they don't want their
to
child
know
to know that
Right,
they
right.
had, written to me, and God knows I have to scurry through the whole thing to make sure I
Right.
reach that part. Like, oops, I don't want to, let the cat out of the bag. But it puts me in a very awkward situation sometimes, because I'm not supposed to have any kind of ex parte communication, but that doesn't really necessarily fit that kind of situation. But you want to address the people in the courtroom who are supporting them, and I don't think anyone can understand how difficult it is to be sitting in that room, not able to help. So for me, it was just a natural progression to say, I can't bear to see this anymore.
Right.
How
Absolutely.
much more crying can I watch and say, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
I wish you luck. I just couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah.
It was frustrating.
And when you're looking into the support group, and I just want to share this with you because I ran an in-person support group. And in the beginning, it was really good because a lot of people that I knew from my support group were coming and changing their schedule to be there. But the problem with that is, and you have to keep going, no matter if it's one person showing up or 15. A lot of people, it takes some time to build that meeting up because if I go, maybe George from next door will be there and then he'll know. Well, he already knows and he knew well before you did, but there's your support.
Right.
And that's what we need to make sure we portray to the parents, the spouses, the friends that are out there that
It's going to take a village. You've got
it is.
You've got to have the neighbors not whispering. You've got to have the family not saying, "Oh,
open the drapes."
I'm really embarrassed for you." No, don't be embarrassed. Be
They
helpful.
are. A lot that they don't know what to say.
I know,
It's
and,
very
and that's why we
uncomfortable, like-
really need to spread the word.
And they're afraid
That-
to ask, "How is your son?" Like they
Right.
don't. People just don't know what to say.
And,
That-
and ew, is he really going down to Kensington? Ew, ew. Enough of the ew. That could be your child too.
Right.
They've got to get it somewhere, and they know they're sure to get it there, and it'll be
Right.
easy and quick.
Exactly.
And they can get back on the train, or they can get back on the highway
Exactly.
past Judge Duffy's court. Because honestly, in my area, we have a very young, aggressive police department. So it's the combination of all the retail on 309 where my court is. It's the the fact that it's a drug corridor, and it's the fact that we have a very proactive police department. Well, actually, both Hatfield and Montgomery, and they're going to stop you for the most minor infraction, vehicle code infraction, and they're going to find things.
Yes.
Like I said, it's the same thing here, but I can't say I'm really against it, but it's very aggressive. I mean, I've seen as many as like 6-8 officers in a line on Woodhaven Road, and one scanning the plates, and they got 6 or 8 cars pulled over. I mean, and that's how they're catching the drug dealers and this and that. I mean, it's a shame they got to inconvenience so many other people that really have led in the efforts to find them, but I mean, It is
Well,
what
I
it
mean,
is.
how many more deaths would we have
Right.
if they weren't
Exactly.
doing that?
We
have
just hope
to.
it would deter them from coming through here in the future, but it's not going to stop them. They're just going to come through somewhere
Right,
else.
and it
Well,
used
I think that's for a while. Their officers were telling me, I think they're going to start going some other route now
Sure
that
they
they're
are.
doing it.
Yeah.
But then we have the other thing that's just so funny. Evidently, people like me in the prison, which is a really
That's awesome.
odd thing to
especially,
hear that you're liked
being
in
in your
the
position,
prison,
sure.
right? I mean. This is very strange, but I'm thrilled with it. No, I'm not saying they all do. Don't get me wrong, but there are so many prisoners who come into a preliminary hearing with me and say, "I was told that I'm really lucky to be in front of you." Word is out that you really will do what you say you're going to do, and isn't it true? You get people in like the 1 to 3 business days has become like this mantra. I heard 1 to 3 business days, and I said, well, you heard right. But it's a village that produces
Right.
that kind
Right.
of time frame and turnaround, but for all the people that are with us, we wouldn't have that, and we didn't have it for a while.
a long time.
Oh,
It takes a
definitely.
long
I mean,
time.
I see such a change, even in law enforcement's attitude towards them. Now, there's so much more understanding, and than before. I mean, especially down in
Absolutely.
Philadelphia area.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I remember cops didn't even want to carry Narcan. They found the reason, and now everybody does.
Right.
Oh yeah, I
I
do.
mean,
My purse,
And it was,
and I encourage every court to have them, and I'm hopefully going to start a program soon where I get all the fast food restaurants in my area
Yes.
To have
to
it in
start
there, yeah.
having Narcan. I have a nice supply now that I'm willing to work with them and take away any excuses. You don't have to go to
Exactly.
the pharmacy. You don't have to, do any
I
copay.
think every school should have it. That's a whole nother
Well,
argument.
yeah, boy, that's
That's
another can of worms.
topic
Yeah.
for another
But-
evening. But I
when we
brought
know
up.
that so many overdoses happen in fast food bathrooms,
Yes.
Really.
And
I
Wawa.
think we really need to address that by having Narcan on the property. Mm-hmm. And
I mean, back in the 70s, I was a kid working at a gas station. I had a problem with the bathroom at the gas station. We would have to constantly check the bathroom because people would be staked out in there. They'd be slumped over, passed out, and all. So, they bought a key and then you don't see them again,
right.
But
Yeah,
it's been
it's-
going on a long time, bathrooms that used
But,
for nefarious reasons.
If somebody else goes in there, then you're not just waiting for the ambulance to come. You
Right.
can do something, and sometimes
Exactly.
those seconds are crucial.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and they're very scared, though, to become involved for litigious issues. They're
Right.
afraid that they're going to be sued or brought in on
And
because
we need to resolve that issue.
right, because they don't understand it. They don't know
Yeah.
the Good Samaritan law and all that. I mean,
And you can't hurt anybody with Narcan.
Exactly.
So
Right.
the one thing that we've done for the last several years with Dara is every forum we give away free Narcan and free Narcan training. And the most important message out of that is you're not going to be infected.
Right.
It's a spray. You're no longer doing the
Injection.
the injection
Yeah.
pen or needle or whatever you want to call it. You really are not going to hurt anybody. If they're having some other issue, medical issue, giving them Narcan isn't going to do a darn thing.
Exactly.
It may not help them, but it's not going to kill them.
Exactly.
So, but everybody needs to be armed with this information.
Mm-hmm.
And how many people are going to be carrying around Narcan? Why not? The question is, why not? Not why should I? It's why shouldn't you?
And thank you, Dara, for having oh my gosh, why can't I think his name just came right out of my mouth.
The last one, the last trainer?
No. You have a video one of your Daras, and Dave Fialco,
Dave Fialco. Yep.
is on that.
He's a wonderful trainer, too.
No, he's our favorite.
And I will
been to
tell you-
probably umpteen of his trainings.
Yep.
In my phone is that video, and I share it to every parent that I talk
Oh,
with
that's wonderful to hear.
that needs to.
Yeah, he did a great job for us.
I have seen him 11 times.
Yep.
And every time I go, you learn something new
Little kernel
because
of information that's new.
everything's
Change it up,
changing
he adds
always.
things to it, I mean,
And I'll tell you, he is amazing. Amazing.
just doing a reversal and telling the person while they're in a comatose state that I'm going to Narcan you. I mean, it's like a coma
It's a very
patient.
practical
Subconsciously, they can hear
They're
you.
like, no.
And it could be enough to bring them out for a second They're just
could be.
little things like that. I mean, we always pick up
It's like
new tips.
neosynephrine. You know, they still make neosynephrine, don't they?
I remember this.
Yeah, but I mean that's all it is. It's a little
It's
nasal
just a harmless
spray.
Yes.
nasal spray.
You know, people
I mean,
get all nervous
I could take it
about
right now; it
but-
wouldn't affect you whatsoever.
Right.
And a lot
Yes.
of people think, well, maybe suppose it's not heroin. Suppose it's something. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's
not going to hurt you.
epilepsy or
It's,
whatever
it's a
it may
judgment
be.
call.
Yeah.
If it's cocaine or if it's crack, it's not going to make a difference. It's not going to bring them out of it, but it's not going to hurt them. And people need to know that.
A facilitator I know, she was doing an education on the Narcan, and it was the needle part of
An
it.
auto injector.
And
Yeah.
and she's sitting there talking
I
about
remember
them,
that, too.
and she's just like, and all you have to do is like,
Stab them right.
she's
in
like,
the-
oh my gosh, I just injected myself. What's gonna happen? Am I gonna? Like, she was so freaked out, but she was fine.
But I just watched this show the other. You know, in Canada, they still go out naloxone kits with injectable Narcan, where you got to load it, and it's an injector. It's not as much a syringe, but you got to load it and then jab them in the thigh with it. Canada's a little bit setback than us. I don't know why they haven't switched over to.
Yeah,
nasal
I do
one.
remember in the beginning that's what you had to do, and I sort of understood why people were reluctant. in a way,
It was,
you know?
because-
I got to make a collage. I got all of them in the house, all the different kinds, from the auto injectors that talk to you. And
Oh, that was
Margie
cool.
got me auto
that
injectors.
was cool.
they
I
talk to
have
you.
those. Yeah.
And then the other ones, you
The
got to screw the
trainers,
top on.
I still have trainers too, so that it talks to you, and it's not really Narcan, but it's a good
Right.
You
trainer.
had the other one. You had a
the
vial, and you
device.
had to screw this nose piece on. It was all the stuff you had to do.
I know,
Now that,
and
you
nobody
know,
needs that time
Yeah.
delay.
No.
But I can't tell you, we've had so many emails from people after a DARA event because what am I on? I think it's like 13th, and I think I said 13th at the last one. I lose
I think
track.
so.
But we've been giving them out for many years, and we get these emails saying, "Thank God, I didn't think I was gonna need one. You know, I didn't know whether I wanted to stay for the training, and it's like a 7-minute training. We're not
Right.
talking about
Right.
major production here,
Right.
But I'm so glad I stayed because even the EMS personnel said." Thank God you gave him the first dose while you were calling us.
Exactly.
It may it could have saved that person's life.
it's seconds are counting.
Yeah.
Clock's ticking. I mean, the sooner
You
the
know,
better.
because
Absolutely.
you don't know how long they've been
They've been
out.
out, right?
So, if you want to increase the chances of your loved one surviving,
Yes.
get the Narcan. Mm-hmm. If there's a standing order,
Right.
go get it. And
Standing order, and
I
it's
hope it
available
expires
so many.
on you. I hope it expires on you, and you never need to use it.
Exactly.
And you get,
Exactly.
turn it in. I'll tell you where to take it. You get a fresh.
I
one.
was at the mall, and I came across the gentleman face down,
Oh, wow.
and all the bags, homeless, and I was like, and I had my daughter-in-law and the just Jackson at the time with us. I was like, just go in, and I'm just gonna go over, and I was like, just as I was getting ready to go over and say, excuse me, the police and the security, I'm like, oh, thank God. I have Narcan if you need it.
Right.
I put on several reversals, and it's a very sobering experience.
I'm sure it's.
I mean,
it's
I equated
miraculous.
to
It's bringing
childbirth.
someone back to life.
You know, I mean, it's like childbirth. When a child's born and they're blue and they start turning pink, it's the same way when you administer Narcan. I mean, you turn up and they're grayish blue, they're not breathing at all. And to just put this nasal spray into them, even unconscious.
It's almost crazy to think
It's
that
absorbed.
works.
Yeah, they don't even have to be breathing. It's just absorbed through the blood vessels in your nasal cavities. And I mean, within no time, boom. I mean, they are at death's door. They're dead. They're not breathing, and they wake up, and you'll see them turning pink first.
Right.
I'm like, oh, well, there it is. They
That's a
start
good
breathing.
sign. Yeah, that's
and then
what
they
you
get
wanna
conscious,
see.
and they jump to their feet and they just want to leave, and you gotta calm them and
Oh,
talk to
now
them.
wait a minute.
You gotta
They
stay.
have to remember that Narcan isn't going to
It's not permanent.
necessarily going to handle everything that you've ingested.
Exactly.
It's going to
It
last
buys
for
you a window, a half an hour,
60
maybe an hour.
and 90 minutes.
And you can overdose on the same dose.
Right.
Again.
And that's the worst
And
thing
with-
when they get up and they're like, no, I don't want any help.
Exactly. They'll do it.
You
That's why
know.
they say don't give them too much. Give them one dose and try to bring them out of it. And to put off the second dose as long as you can. Cause
But that's
if you
scary
leave,
too, though.
Sure.
I mean, like,
Yeah.
But you keep them a little bit woozy. I mean, they're more likely to take the help when
And that's what I like about
Because-
Dave Fialco, because he tells you, you count their breaths. It's like 12 12 breaths per minute. If it's anything under that, then you need to give them
second.
the second one.
They're immediately put in the precipitated withdrawal, is what it's called, and they're immediately
And they're
irritable,
pissed.
and they're frightened because they just woke up. Everybody's standing around them, and if they take off, they're most likely going to use again. Mm-hmm.
Because now
upset.
they're
now they got even
traumatized.
more in
Yeah.
their system.
We just,
So
I remember somebody that was teaching us how to use Narcan, and he said that there was a circle of people just around this body, and they Narcan this guy, and he like jumped up and was standing there, and he's like, "What's everybody looking at?" And they're like, "You were just dead." And he was like, "No, that wasn't me. You must have been wrong." And he took off because
It's the most amazing thing. I've seen so many reversals of it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, wow. It's a miracle drug. It's been around since 1961. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
new drug. Naloxone's been around a long time.
And the craziest thing too, it's not even an overdose, it's just the dipping out. And it's like you're dipping out, and it's like,
And
no,
I saw
I'm
dipping
not.
for the first time when I was with you
Yeah,
guys.
just lean all the way down to the ground.
I'm like,
You know.
what do you call that? Yeah,
dipping, man.
I felt.
I don't know how they don't fall over sometimes. I mean, not to make fun of them.
I don't get it.
They rock
you know?
back and they
I've
lower
danced
and
my
lower and-
my whole life. You know, took dancing since I was 3. I don't think I could stay in that position.
It's
No.
amazing.
It's the weirdest.
and then they
phenomenon.
just
It's
lose
It's the
it.
worst feeling when people like knock you out of it, and you're like, "Shit, how long was I doing that for?" Like,
Right.
That's the worst feeling. You just like
I
that's why
can't-
you just pretend like, "Oh, you just."
It wasn't
pretended
me,
it
yeah.
happened. You just pretended it
wa-
happened. I've
But
seen
that was-
so many times.
That was a problem in Kensington for a while. People were Narcanning the crap out of everyone. Everybody's sleeping on benches or out calling. Like, I mean.
But how didn't they fall and like knock themselves
And-
out on their forehead because they're so far over the bound? How did that? It's not humanly
And it's
possible to
amazing.
stay that way.
No.
Even if you're
Even
the-
yoga teachers
Yeah, even the
can't
most
do
well balanced, physically well balanced people shouldn't be able to do that.
Yes.
That was the other thing. Besides the guy who was shooting up in front of me, I wanted to run over to those people and straighten them out because I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna,
They're gonna fall.
They're gonna fall right on their foreheads and die. They're gonna
Exactly.
hit that concrete
Yep.
and die.
Yep.
So I mean,
It's a whole learning curve when you
Yes.
go down and do outreach.
Yeah.
Right.
You learn
And I don't know.
what they accept.
Yeah, I don't know the last time you were down there. It's the worst. You know,
it's
it's
even-
it's
like 100
you
times
can't
worse.
even begin
Yeah,
to
we took a little
fathom.
cameo appearance down there a couple months ago.
well,
to
next
see-
time you're doing a cameo, please take me.
Yeah, and it got worse.
You can't even get out.
We thought it couldn't get worse,
Yeah.
and it got much worse.
Yeah, and it's a shame. It's sad. It is really sad. But we have 14 minutes left. So if
Wow.
anybody had, say I told
Yeah,
I
you, it
tried.
goes
so quickly.
14 minutes
We're
left.
passionate
If
about
you
what we talk
have
about, you just
any
keep talking.
questions, please, either call
Larry
in
says the slang is Kensington yoga.
Kensington Yoga.
That makes sense.
Yeah, either comment or call in. We have 14 minutes.
You know, Larry, I heard one the other night. I bet you haven't heard of. What do you call those cheese curls? They call them Kensington shrimp.
Oh,
Somebody
goodness.
told me the other night that's the other name for cheese curls. I don't write them. I just recite them.
I think the crazy thing is also that you can't win. You want to show the horrible circumstances of that area. You want to make people
aware.
of how bad it really is. But by the same token, you don't want to exploit those people.
Exactly. That's why Special Like AIM doesn't take any pictures of anyone in active addiction. That's a probably one of their strictest rules.
Oh, and I learned that. I definitely did.
Oh, you're
and I didn't even take pictures of people. I just
Right.
took picture of a needle on the ground, and they didn't.
That's fine. They're not against that. But
well, no, but there was a
just
hand near there too. I forget what it was, but I
more or
thought
less-
I was comporting with the rule. But I understand because
when that
it-
person
it-
later on, that person gets help and they don't want that picture being circulated. Them at their
with
lowest point.
with social media,
but even if
it's
we're the back of them, you
Right.
know what I mean? Like
That's not so
there's
bad.
well, no, and I understand that, but I think we still, if you keep inundating people with these horrible pictures of people that they instead of feeling sorry for them, they just get disgusted by
Oh,
it because
sure.
they're not understanding
'Cause
the
they-
whole
right.
the whole picture.
They're not
They just
affected.
look at these particular photos and they're like, "Ew, that's disgusting." That's not what we want. We don't want people to look at those pictures
Right.
and think
See,
that.
AIM has very good rules for a certain reason. You know, like blessing bags. Most people don't even know what the blessing bags are. It's not as much to give them something to eat. It's a tool to gain trust, and that's what they were originally designed for. We go out and then you establish dialogue, but they don't just talk to anybody. They're
Right.
very solitude to themselves, and then they see you every week, and they know you got the coffee, and that's why I only brought like coffee and hot chocolate. We have blessing bags, and then they start opening up to you and talking to you and trusting you, and you say, if you should decide to make a change, I hope you call me first.
Yeah.
I'm there to help you get through the red tape, to cut through the bullshit. Get you. I mean, that's why we're here every week. I'm not here to give you this candy bar, but I'm here to give you a little helping hand here and just to something to establish dialogue. That's what it was for, and it worked great. I mean,
And no one said that day that I was a judge. They were making very
Exactly.
clear. I'm Andrea today.
Andrea.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I wonder, how many people there, got help because people like you, the parents and the caring people, they didn't push them into it, but they made them understand
about it.
that
You have a
you're
friend.
not alone.
exactly, and that's
You
what it
know,
is.
you don't have to be ashamed.
And that was the one thing that I portrayed to them. Like, you call your family, call your mother, call
No,
your
you're
father.
alive. My
Just-
gosh, take that off of them.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, they don't even love me anymore. They threw me out, and I'm
Many
like,
times we let them
no,
use our
they
phones to call home.
they didn't throw you out. They just couldn't watch you killing yourself. They love you and they want to see you do well. So please call them. Just tell them you
I
love
think
them.
you have to tell people who are struggling, put yourself in your parents' position, watching you fade, watching you get closer and closer to death. Try to understand what they were going through.
It's
know,
tough to portray that to them because
is.
when you're in the throes of addiction, especially with opiates and all, your
not
brain's
thinking
not
right.
producing
No,
the
you're not.
chemicals you need to foster these emotions. You know what I mean? Your serotonin levels are off, your dopamine levels.
Oh.
So you don't feel guilt or remorse, and
Right.
you don't. You become just
You can't even empathize
an
with your
emotionless
parents.
person.
Right.
Where, like,
No.
you know, it
But
was all-
that when they say things, my parents don't love me anymore. That's the only thing I could think of to say back to them. But you
Sure.
gotta understand.
I don't even
They-
remember
they
much
didn't wanna-
anymore. It's such a blur, to be
Yeah.
honest. I
Yeah,
don't really remember much of any like my active addiction. It's such a blur.
And do you think that's a good thing that you don't?
I think it's a catch-22, to be honest.
Yeah.
It-
I mean, I
it's
know
a
where I
defense
came
mechanism,
from,
I think,
you know?
built into us.
Yeah,
I mean,
like I know where I came from. I know like I don't want to go back to that, but
Right.
a
So
lot
you-
of like the roughest times. It's such a blur.
it's even like people with real tragic events. I mean, it's a coping mechanism. We just
Right.
it's used
We remember
because we don't
only
want
what
to
we
dwell
need
on it. We
to.
don't want to remember that because they weren't enjoyable times in our life. I mean, it was just survival. I mean,
Right.
it's very exhausting.
But like the photos and video stuff, that's also a catch-22 because it's so much worse not on the streets that no one sees. Like the stuff on
Right.
the streets is bad. That ain't nothing compared to
Behind the scenes, yeah.
behind the scenes off the
Well,
streets.
yeah. When I
Yeah.
went with the strike force and we went into the houses and I saw
We have a caller.
those things, it was crazy.
Hello, caller.
Hello there. How are you?
Hi.
Very well. That sounds like Larry.
Yeah.
He's a good friend of
I
the
was
show.
just, you touched me with that, I get thrown out because they don't love me. Well, I got thrown out of I just want to share this with people. I got thrown out of my house too because of my drinking. Not because they didn't love me. It's just they couldn't stand to see me anymore. What I was doing to them, what I was doing to myself. I was just I was just a two-legged eyesore. All I do was hurt them, my children. They were teenagers then, and they wanted me out for their own sanity. And it wound up in hindsight being one of the best things that could have happened to them and to me. Now, a few years down the road, after I got help, I lost my marriage, but I gained family and friends back. But, the question of, they don't love me, well, I knew they loved me, but I also knew that I was the problem, too. I couldn't handle my liquor, couldn't handle my beer, whatever I was drinking, and I would drink anything. And, it got me, off my rear end to start working on myself. And it took a few years. It took like 2.5, 3 years before I got any kind of, respect or love it or anything from my family. So, it's a work in progress, and I still do it today. And I go to the Wednesday meetings, and they're great. I learned a lot there, even though I was the alcoholic, not the person who had somebody who was addicted or alcohol. So you learn, both sides get to learn a
Yeah.
few lessons.
That's a really good point. I learned so much. I mean, I've gone to therapy sessions and 12-step sessions. I don't have a child, knock wood. Is this wood? I hope
It is
God,
wood.
is
I
wood.
built it.
Yeah. I don't have one. And I hope it never gets to that point that I do. But I've learned so much from going to all these different meetings that from different perspectives, talking to parent groups. How has this affected you? I mean, unless you get the complete, 360, viewpoint, I don't think that you can be as helpful to people.
No.
Especially when I haven't lived through it.
Right.
You
right.
know, you got to get these different perspectives, and you have to be able to say the right things to parents and in my courtroom to calm them down, to try to make the ones who, what, you're going to do what? Like, don't bail them out now because
Right.
I have a plan. Don't
Yes.
mess with my plan,
Yeah,
please. They're going to be
please.
in a facility tomorrow. And I've had parents who have completely thwarted the whole plan.
Well, because
They want them out.
well, they want them out because, you watch TV and they're dying in jail.
Right.
They're being gang raped. They're being beaten. They're being
Right.
so you're seeing this on TV. So what, I'd rather them out getting high than getting beat up or gang
And
raped.
they don't want to even necessarily believe you. You're really going to get them into a treatment bed. Do you know how many times we've tried to get our son in
Yeah.
treatment?
Right.
You really are expecting us to believe you're going to do it in 1 to 3 business days. I'm sorry, but I think you mean well, but I'm going to just bail them out, and we're going to try it our own way.
Yeah.
So it happens, but so yeah, and that's wonderful. I think as someone in recovery, learning all aspects of addiction is great too,
Yes.
because people who are struggling with substance abuse only see their viewpoint. So how great is it to go through the whole process?
Yeah, and I'm grateful.
Larry attends our Wednesday night meetings all the time. And he's a good friend of the show. He's a good
Yes.
friend of ours now. He's always got something very enlightening to say, and he speaks. He's very plausible when he speaks. He's very believable. I mean,
Thank you, Larry.
He's very truthful.
Yeah.
You're
Got
always
nothing to hide. That's the best part of it.
Yeah.
Now that I went through the recovery thing, I'm not shy or ashamed. I did what I did, and now I'm working my way out of it, and I can, give that to people who are struggling, who don't, who are kind of hesitant about working this program, being open and honest.
Right.
And once I opened up and I tell everybody everything, it doesn't bother me anymore.
And you're
So I get
Exhibit A, Larry. You're Exhibit A.
Exhibit
It does
A.
work if you
Yeah.
work it, right?
Yep.
That's the expression I
Yeah.
always hear.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I say at the end of the show. Recovery works if you work it. That's my closing line.
Yeah.
I mean, but you're living proof that
Yes.
it does work.
He really is. I mean, he's got his kids back in his life. He's happier than he's ever been for a long time. I mean,
So far, so good.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's
They
a
wouldn't even
never-ending
talk to him
story.
at one point. So now,
And you got to meet me.
Yeah, yeah.
and you got
You
his
know,
kid, they're
hey,
taking a big
That's the best part of
trip
recovery,
together.
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah.
learn-
All
you
right,
have
I'm
some
going to
true
go.
friends.
All
Yeah,
right.
A couple of minutes left. Maybe somebody else might want to call.
Thanks,
Okay.
Larry. Thank you, Larry.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Great.
Larry.
Have a good night, everybody.
All right, buddy.
And
Be
our
safe.
when we were the parent group, it was great because before COVID, the family group would be in the room, and we would have a speaker once a month come in and tell their story. Well, they also brought the patients that were in treatment
That's wonderful.
into the room.
So the patients
and-
will be on one side, the parents on the other, and the more.
And the best thing is the patients come walking in like, what the? What am I? Because
Bunch of parents
they
sitting
don't
there.
tell them what they're doing. So they sit down and we listen to the speaker, and then it's opened up, and we wait for the patients to raise their hand to ask questions and offer suggestions, and they never do. So the parents are raising their hand, and all of a sudden they're like, boom, boom. I had no idea I was doing this to the family. Like, this was my disease.
It's like
and
magical. Then they start opening up. And I said, I only wish my parents had came to a program like this to understand what I was going through.
And then I can understand what they're
right.
going through.
It was
you know?
it was like magical every month. It was really cool.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
And-
You don't hear that often
No,
happening.
no. And I think we need to bring that front stage, because bringing the both sides together to hear that.
And that happens sometimes in my courtroom. I'll be honest with you, especially if the officer's not in there, the mother or the grandmother or whoever it may be. Sometimes the wife, they'll just break down and say, "Do you know what you're doing to me?" I just sit back and I let them speak their minds.
Right.
And you see the defendant, just the tears coming, and it looks like they're having an awakening. I mean, it looks like they're really getting that epiphany. I don't know if it's always true.
Right.
I don't know if there's sometimes they're putting on a show for me.
Right.
They
And-
could be.
Right. But a lot
I
of
do think there's some wonderful
Yeah.
communication that can happen if you just let it play out.
Yeah, because you have to be careful too, because then the shame, the guilt, and the hurt comes in, and it's just like,
You're right. That
Okay,
could
I
have an
need to-
unexpected consequence too.
yeah.
If
So
you're made to feel so guilty, then you
Right.
feel like
yeah,
what do I have
and,
to lose? Now
and that's
it's
why
all
they
off.
do it the way they do. They're in treatment, so when they go back, and the counselors pick out certain people to come
that
over.
they think are the best
so
candidates for
so
sure.
then the
I
parents
didn't know
learn.
they did that. That's great.
Yeah. And it is. I love that aspect. And the only other thing, and I know we're coming to an end, but I know we're at the end, but the HIPAA laws, we need to change this, because here are groups of people that cannot think for themselves. Their brains are
Right.
just not making good decisions. So how can we allow the medical field to make those decisions for them, to allow them to make those decisions? Of course they're going to say, no, I'm not going to do this, because
Well, it's akin to the 302 commitment. We a lot of people think that we need to create another little niche like 302.
we need 302B.
for yeah.
There's something, right, the Williamson thing, or what's it called? It's something that's akin to that they're using.
I mean,
in
there's
some
a
states.
lot. There's a lot of things that are in the works, and let's hope that something does come to fruition, because they are a danger to themselves or others.
Yes.
Just because they're not saying out loud, "I want to kill myself."
Right, exactly, exactly.
We all know that if every time you take a dose of heroin, knowing full well, as they all do, they know this much, that it could have fentanyl in it and it could be deadly, then they don't care about themselves or others.
Right. And a lot of times-
you gotta find some
Right.
way to address that stage.
Right, and a lot of times they don't want to wake up. I do not want to wake up from this. Why
I
did
don't want
you?
to go on another day like this.
Like, yeah. But they still don't know how to get out of it. So
Right. But I don't want to wake up and to start this whole
yes,
day again like this.
Whole
'Cause it's
cycle.
just
I mean,
one
you
day
get your
after
hustle on,
another.
and you got every day. That's.
yeah,
Groundhog Day.
Yeah,
like they say.
it
It's
is.
like
It
just
is.
One
We talk
week.
about
is.
rituals. I know we're running late, but like he told us. I know before down in Kensington, the dealers will come out in the morning and throw free samples down on the ground, so everybody pick up. They get well, so they go out and get their hustle on, and come back in the afternoon and buy more product from them.
Right.
It's a whole
Yeah.
networking scheme people aren't even aware of out there.
Right.
It's like the hot bags. They make they intentionally make hot bags that people die from, and that's the good stuff. I mean, because-
Right, that's
gotta
the
remember-
first time I heard about it then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And how they're giving out Narcan too. Dealers are carrying Narcan. Why do they want to lose their customers?
right, exactly.
So I was seeing needles next to Narcan.
They don't want people dying right in front of them either. There's all kinds of rules down there. You gotta
Yeah,
follow.
don't do that.
Don't
right?
die here.
You're
Go-
gonna
just
turn
go
off.
to-
There's all kinds
You're
of
gonna hurt
rules.
business.
Yeah.
All kinds of rules.
Yeah.
Follow down there.
Wow.
Well, guys, that was a quick
Yeah,
hour and a
went
half.
quick. That went quick.
And that's why we don't do breaks, because we don't have commercials, but
Still no breaks. Yeah.
but I just want to thank you very much. This was
It's
an
a pleasure.
amazing show, and please, everybody out there, subscribe, like, and share, especially share. We never know who needs to hear this. So
And honestly, if anybody wants to contact me or my team, DaraSavesLives@gmail.com, or go on Facebook like Dara.
DARA.
DARA, Drug Addiction Resource Alliance. Find us, and you don't have to be arrested and brought in my court before we can help you.
right.
It's a great lady. We've been trying to get her on for a long time. We always love
Finally
it.
worked.
You're
Yes.
doing great. I'm glad it looks like you enjoyed yourself, and
I
that's
did.
awesome.
I did. I learned a lot. And,
Okay.
that's what you have to do. You have to keep learning.
You do.
Right.
You do.
And remember, gang, recovery works if you work it.
All right, everybody.
I'm
Peace
sorry,
out.
I stalled out.
That's all
I'm
right,
so
I'll let you.
sorry.
Good night.
Good night.
Be safe.